She's reflecting light onto people, but she's deflecting the possibility of anything real coming into her life. You should never be a blank canvas for another person. They do not have any boundaries. The true nature of everything in this song is hollowness. Emotional hollowness. This is kind of dehumanizing in my opinion. I think this song could be like a warning, honestly. A lot of people don't really know the value of what you're giving them. It's all in the context of a party. There is no party here. There's no party here. Hi everyone, welcome to this video. On my channel, I analyze song lyrics very in depth through the lens of literary analysis. Today we're going to be analyzing the song Mirrorball by Taylor Swift from her album Folklore. I will make sure to link my Taylor Swift analyses playlist below for you. We've also done quite a few songs from Evermore and her other albums as well. I also analyze other artists as well, so make sure to take a look around my channel. Here's a list of literary terms I may refer to throughout this video, and as always, everything I discuss is just my own personal opinion. I always love hearing what you think down below in the comments. Hey guys, I want to let you know that I am offering critiques and feedback on your original poems or your original song lyrics. I am now on the website Fiverr. That's www.fiverr.com, spelled Fiverr/Summer Sentiment. If you would like me to take a look at your original work and provide you very detail-oriented and thorough feedback, go ahead and check it out. I will put a link down in the description. If you feel inclined, please subscribe to my channel and like this video, and let's just get into it. A mirror ball is the same thing as a disco ball. It can be defined as a large revolving ball covered with small pieces of mirror glass, so that it reflects light in changing patterns. Something that I want to just mention because I can't stop thinking about it is the moon. Bear with me for a second. I don't think this is intentional. This is just something that I kept thinking about as I was preparing for this video. The mirror ball really reminds me of the moon, not just because it's in the sky and it's like a white silvery color, but because of the fact that a mirror ball reflects light. I've talked about the moon a few times on my channel, I think mostly in my Lana Del Rey analyses. The moon is very beautiful. You know, I love the moon. I stan. However, the moon doesn't create its own light. Moonlight is actually sunlight that is reflected onto the moon. I made this point in my Summertime Sadness analysis by Lana Del Rey. That's a little bit melancholy if you want to think about it metaphorically. Moonlight is very beautiful, it's very romantic, it's a soft light. It is a light in the darkness of the night sky. However, the moon itself is not able to create that light. It has to depend on the sunlight. The protagonist of this song is identifying herself as a mirror ball. She's reflecting light onto others. And when you look at a mirror ball, there's so much light bouncing off of it. It's reflecting into the room. It's bringing life into the party, life onto the dance floor. It's not reflecting anything inward. It's just outwards. Metaphorically, it's hollow. Emotionally, that's a hollow existence. You know, in this song, this protagonist, and we're gonna get into it more in a second, she views it as her responsibility to bring light to others. But internally, I don't think there's much light in her. I do think it's significant that this song is not called Disco Ball, it's called Mirror Ball. For me, I think there could be two main reasons why Taylor decided to do this. First, it could be for historical reasons. Maybe she wanted us to think about this song occurring during a certain time period. A very quick history of the mirror ball. It was first mentioned in 1897 in an issue of a publication called The Electrical Worker. It was something that was created as a decoration for that organization's gathering. It was called a mirrored ball. In 1917, someone named Louis Bernard Wosty, I'm probably mispronouncing that, applied for a patent for something called a myriad reflector, and he began to sell that in the 1920s. At this point, they were still called the myriad reflector. It states here that they popped up at dances as well as jazz clubs and skating rinks and even circuses, where animals might balance themselves on reinforced reflectors. I will be going back to this in the bridge when we have the lyrics about the circus. So these mirrored balls or myriad reflectors continued to be built. However, they didn't reach their pop icon status until the 1970s due to disco. So there really is a timeline with the mirror ball. If we were talking about like the 1970s onwards, it would be called a disco ball. But before that, it would be called a mirror ball or a myriad reflector. So the choice of this song title could be reflective of a specific historical time period. Taylor could have also chosen Mirrorball just due to the metaphorical nature of mirrors, which I'm going to discuss in a second. I do think that was part of the intention. If you look at the official lyric video for this song, there are literally some lyrics that are reflected, much like a mirror would reflect it. So I do think that the metaphorical nature of mirrors is very important and was part of the decision in calling this song Mirrorball. I would love to hear your take about this, so feel free to leave me a comment down below. First one. Let's start off by discussing the first two lines of the song. I want you to know I'm a mirrorball. I have a lot to say about this. First of all, I want to draw your attention to the directness of the protagonist. They're showing a lot of awareness. They're literally defining themselves as a mirrorball. I'm a little bit concerned because they're not saying, I'm like a mirrorball. A mirrorball would remind you of me. They are literally calling themselves a mirrorball. They're aligning themselves with an inanimate object, which is always concerning to me when it happens because an inanimate object is, not alive. There is no liveliness. There's no lively energy or a life source in inanimate objects. So if a person who is living and breathing and who is like a lively entity is aligning themselves with something that is the opposite, I always find that a little bit concerning. If it were to say, I'm like a mirrorball, I wouldn't be as concerned. I know some of you may say that I'm being overly analytical here, but for me, whenever I analyze lyrics from an artist who I know is very intentional, I don't view anything as a mistake. Even if I was going to be analyzing like a poem or a novel or something, I, based on nothing, assume that someone who is a very experienced writer would subconsciously phrase things in a specific way to connote the emotions they want to connote. That's why for me, I view the way this is stated as very intentional. And to be honest, it just makes me feel some type of way. If it was going to say I'm like a mirrorball, I would be like, oh, okay, the protagonist is having a metaphorical moment. But since they're saying I'm a mirrorball, it's more literal, that really does make me feel more sad. It makes me feel concerned. So I'm having an emotional response to the writing. This is why I mostly concentrate on diction, because to me, it's the most important thing. Like, words are so emotive, whether you're looking for it or not, it's subconsciously going to have an effect on the person. So I just wanted to point that out. I also am thinking about why the protagonist is stating that they're a mirrorball. I am curious to know where that belief came from. Has the protagonist been told this by other people, or is it more of an internal thing that they are making this statement themselves? We also aren't told who the you is referring to. It could be the audience, or it could be, and this is the interpretation I'm more partial towards, I believe it's referring to a love interest, and I think that's who this whole song is directed towards. But you can think about it either way. Now I want to talk about what it could mean for a person, for a human being to be a mirrorball. There's lots of ways to think about it. I'm thinking about like two main routes we can take. So when I think about a mirrorball, I think about like the party version of what a mirrorball could represent. A mirrorball is going to be out on the dance floor where people are having a good time, or we can concentrate on the fact that a mirrorball is made up of hundreds of tiny mirrors glued together, and we can talk about the metaphorical nature of mirrors and what that could mean. Those are the two main routes that I'm going to take when discussing this. First, let's talk about like the party nature of a mirrorball. The purpose of a mirrorball out on the dance floor is to create an ambiance. It's going to make it just more fun. It's creating vibes, okay? And vibes are very important, especially at a party. In the context of a party, a mirrorball has one function and one function only. There is no love being given to the mirrorball. There is no gratitude being expressed towards the mirrorball. Probably not even like cleaned or dusted as often as it should be. It's something that exists solely for the enjoyment of other people. So if one extrapolate this out metaphorically, the party mirrorball could represent a person who is the life of the party. They're giving off a lot of energy. They're being very extroverted, right? They're reflecting a lot of energy, a lot of vibes out onto the dance floor, and they're making sure everyone has a good time. But internally, this person, this life of the party, is not experiencing that, right? It's like someone being very hollow emotionally inside, but putting on a show for others. No one really cares that they're doing this. No one is thankful that this person is bringing the vibes to the party. They're using the ambiance this person is creating, but they're not thanking the person. They're not forming intimate relations with the person. And intimate could be platonic or romantic. There is nothing of substance or value here. This person is only performing a function for others. So that's a way to think about a person being a mirror ball, metaphorically, if you want to think about the party context of a mirror ball. Now, let's talk about mirrors. So mirrors literally allow a person to see themselves, to see what they look like, to check their hair, their lip gloss, and other things as well. Keep in mind that when you see yourself in the mirror, it's not how the world views you. You are in fact viewing a mirror image when you look in the mirror. So, it's helpful to look in a mirror. It's very necessary, but it's also low-key a lie. Just putting that out there. Mirrors can also be manipulated to make you look a little bit differently. Think about like a funhouse mirror. They make you look wider or taller. And also like literally some mirrors in fitting rooms, like at the mall and stuff, they make you look skinnier. So you'll buy their outfits. So yeah, we know. I think it's important to keep in mind that how a person sees themselves in a mirror is not always going to reflect reality. Another thing that I want to talk about is what it means when people say, you're like a mirror to me. That means they're showing you who you are. Sometimes when people come into your life, your dynamic with them really makes you like see yourself, and usually you don't like what you see, right? I'm not talking about like physically, but they show you the type of person you are and you're like, OMG, I need to work on myself. We see this play out a lot in like movies and TV shows. There's characters whose specific function is just to be a mirror to like the protagonist of a TV show and to show them who they've become and how they've changed, and then they realize it and they're like, OMG, I'm going to better myself. So that's how a person could be a mirror for another person. They show them their true selves in that moment. That's good for the protagonist who's benefiting from this, but if you think about the person who's acting as the mirror, it's pretty sad. And in this song, the protagonist is self-identifying as a mirror ball, which essentially is a mirror. It's like tiny mirrors glued together. Also, it's not one full mirror, it's like broken mirrors. Keep that in mind. That's also not super positive. When mirrors are broken, what do we say? Do we say they bring you good luck or bad luck? Right? I mean, on a mirror ball, they're like pasted very neatly, but they are broken pieces of a mirror. So just symbolically, that's kind of like a foreshadow as well, if you want to view it in that way. When I view a person as being a mirror to another, I kind of view the person being the mirror as a blank canvas. So the protagonist of this song is essentially saying, I'm a blank canvas. They are canceling out the entirety of who they are for the benefit of other people. Why? Why are they doing this? This is really, really sad because they are, in essence, refusing to acknowledge their own existence in the service of other people. It's like they're committed to the emotional betterment of others, but they're not even acknowledging the fact that they are a human being. That's my main takeaway. This is why I find this song so heartbreaking, and the fact that the protagonist is so aware of this that they're able to state it very eloquently. I really wonder what caused them to get into this dynamic with other people where they're not respecting themselves. They're only concerned with the just emotional improvement and the enjoyment of other people. You should never be a blank canvas for another person. Like, no, you should be yourself, someone who's very unique and nuanced and a mixture of a bunch of different things. And you don't even have to try to be that. Every person just naturally is that. Whether you think you are or not, you literally are. Let's move on to the third line. The protagonist says, I'll show you every version of yourself tonight. This is kind of dehumanizing in my opinion. The protagonist's function is just to show people who they are. They're going to show this person, the you they're referring to, every version of themselves tonight. Something that I want to talk about, and I would really love to hear your thoughts about this. I think that for some people, there are constant patterns present within the undercurrents of their life, no matter what they do, kind of like cycles that repeat and keep repeating in different ways with different people in different settings, but the essence of what is experienced is always the same. I think that's what's going on for the protagonist. I think that a pattern that has been present in their life has been them helping others come to understandings about themselves, but the protagonist not moving forward. Their role is to help others move forward. But for some reason, subconsciously, they always have been remaining in the same place, stagnant. And that's been their role. That could have been their role as a child. And now they're, I'm assuming, a young adult, and the context is different. The person is different, but it's the same exact story. It's like a same movie with a different cast, right? But just you, the protagonist is still the same. That's what the line, "I'll show you every version of yourself tonight," makes me think. The protagonist is a blank canvas. They're stagnant. They're not moving forward, but they're helping other people move forward in such an intense way. They're going to show them every single version of themselves just in one night. There's so much depth to this song, and there's really a lot of ways you can extrapolate this out. But for me, the essence of this song is about a person who is stuck in the cycle of serving others, probably people that don't deserve it, but not serving themselves. And, you know, these cycles that people find themselves in, these patterns of life that are just kind of, for some reason, etched into the background of their every move, it doesn't have to be permanent. You can break out of that. It may not be easy or fun to break out of that because, you know, patterns are familiar, and I think human beings prefer familiarity over doing things that are right. But it is possible to break out of that. It's just, sometimes you may not realize you're in it, or other times you just, I don't know, you just don't know what to do. So I do hope that this protagonist eventually breaks out of the cycle that they're in. We're not given any clues about that happening, and I'm really extrapolating this out from the song, but that's what I think about every time I hear it. It makes me so sad to listen to this song, but it's so beautiful. Please tell me down below if you agree with me or not. I find that aspect of the song to be really sad, but really interesting. So I would love to hear your take on it down below in the comments. Remember, I just said that the protagonist is stationary in their life and they're moving everyone else's life forward. They're helping them. Keep in mind that a mirror ball is literally stationary. It's going to move around like it spins around, but it's spinning around while being attached to a stationary like pole. It's not going anywhere. It's not going anywhere. And if you think about it spatially, it is above the crowd. So it's in an elevated place, which is positive if you're like higher up, but they're stuck there. Everything is giving the illusion that everything's great, or like there's fake positive imagery here, you know, with the light that's associated with a mirror ball and the fact that a mirror ball is, you know, above everyone else. But those are all just fake positive things. The essence of everything is very dark and very somber. It's kind of like that lyric in the song that Taylor did with Zayn, "I don't want to live forever." And I've brought this up before. The lyric is something like, "I've been looking sad in all the nicest places." It's juxtaposition of visuals, of imagery that is very positive, but with a very negative and dark reality. I've been feeling sad in all the nicest places. You wouldn't expect that to happen. You would expect someone to enjoy themselves in a very beautiful place. A mirror ball does have positive things associated with it, but that's just on the surface. The true nature of everything in this song is hollowness, emotional hollowness. I would also argue just existential hollowness as well. I'll get you out on the floor, shimmering beautiful. And when I break, it's in a million pieces. I'm gonna get you out on the floor. They're gonna make sure they have a great time. They're gonna pull them out on the dance floor, make them dance. It's gonna be their responsibility to make sure that they have a good time. Shimmering beautiful. I think the protagonist is referring to themselves. So if we are to view the mirror ball as a person, they're gonna be wearing a very shimmery dress. It's gonna be very sparkly and cute. I kind of think about the dress that Taylor wore to an event. I don't know what event it was, but she literally looks like a disco ball with her outfit. It was like the little mini dress with the thigh-high boots. We saw it in Miss Americana. But yeah, like if there was ever going to be a music video for this song, if I was directing it, I would have a mirror ball in the middle of the dance floor, and I would have the protagonist wearing a dress that reflects light just like the mirror ball, and I would cut back and forth between the dress and the girl spinning in the dress and the mirror ball spinning, and then I would just make it cute at first and then make it creepy by the end, right? Because that's what's happening. And for me, I don't know if this is going to be the same for anyone else, but for me, there's a lot of like existential undertones to the song. Like for me, when I listen to it, that happens pretty often to me. I view things in like an existential way pretty often. So could be an overanalysis on my part, but it's just how I feel. You know, like in movies where the cast is like in high school, there's always that episode. It's like a fateful night at the dance. There's like 4 or 5 separate plot lines going on, and the common hub of the episode is always like on the dance floor where the characters meet up for a second and their plot lines cross, and then they go out of the dance and do whatever their plot line requires, and then they all kind of like come back to the dance floor, and it's just everything is centered around the dance. That's kind of like the vibe I have from this song. That's like what I envision. There's something brewing. I feel like this dance is taking place like on a full moon or something. I keep thinking about that. I keep thinking about existential vibes. I keep thinking about the moon. I keep thinking about just things being connected in a way that doesn't make sense until the very end. So just like fate, it's just, I don't know. That's what I think about when I listen to this song. I don't like the last line of this verse. I really don't. I don't like the word when. The protagonist is not saying if I break, they're saying when. They are anticipating that happening. Why? Why are they anticipating that? We can literally think about like a mirror ball falling and breaking on the dance floor, but I think about the protagonist breaking into a million pieces emotionally. When you take on emotional labor the way the protagonist is, and you don't have like an outlet, you're going to internalize all of your emotions. If you keep things in for too long, it's not healthy for you. It's going to manifest outwards in one way or another. It's going to break you into a million pieces emotionally, which is what this protagonist is going to have happen, and they know it, which makes me think that it's happened before. It's a cycle. Like I said earlier, it's just like a constant cyclical thing in their life. Also, million pieces is very important. It's not 1,000 pieces. It's not 100 pieces. A million is a very large number. It's going to be much harder to put all those pieces back together in their right place, in the right way. It's never going to be the same again. And the number of pieces is probably correlated with the depth of pain the protagonist is truly in. The protagonist isn't going to be able to heal completely from the fallout of what they're doing. It's changing them. Every time they repeat the cycle, they're going to be a different person, but in a negative way. Another thing I want to say about the protagonists themselves is that, you know, I know a mirror ball has external beauty. I would argue that even though this protagonist is probably wearing a shiny dress and very beautiful externally, I would argue that their internal world is beautiful as well. It's just the circumstance they're in, the weird pattern of behavior that they're caught in, that's what's causing them to have a hollowness inside of them. It's not a hollowness of character, it's a hollowness of emotion. Chorus. The word hush, it's kind of maternal. It reminds me of someone taking care of another person. They are trying to protect the other person's emotional state. So they're like, hush, like don't say anything. It's kind of like saying don't worry about it. If you don't want to think about it in a maternal way, I would just say it gives me a protective sort of connotation. I want to talk about my dear because it's a term of endearment. I think they feel protective of them. That's why we have the diction like the word hush and my dear. And I think the protagonist, for some reason or another, they feel like that's always their role, to just kind of like be the bridge for other people to walk over to get to better things. Bridges don't move, they're stationary, they stay there, and people's dirty shoes walk all over them. So tallest tiptoes to me is interesting. It makes me feel like the protagonist is just doing the most. They're doing extra. They're going the extra mile. We're told in the next line that they're wearing heels, so they're already like higher up. And if you're on your tiptoes in heels, let me tell you, that's not comfortable, okay? So they are potentially putting themselves through pain to be on their tallest tiptoes. It just seems like unnecessary in my opinion. I'm saying this because of the context of the song. If it said tallest tiptoes in another song in another context, I probably wouldn't be taking it so negatively. If you want to view this more positively, the protagonist is positioning herself higher up. So like that could be positive, but for me, I'm not getting any positive connotations from this. Spinning in my highest heels, love. The protagonist is spinning very much like a mirror ball would spin. Parallel between a literal mirror ball and the protagonist is still going strong in this song. It says, shining just for you. Usually a mirror ball, or not usually, literally always, a mirror ball is going to exist for the entire party, right? However, in this instance, the protagonist is like narrowing in on one person. This really does remind me of what I mentioned earlier about the protagonist probably having a pattern in their life of helping others reach greater heights while they're still stagnant in the same place. And I think this person, this love interest perhaps, is the next person that is going to be a part of this repetitive cycle for her. It's kind of like the protagonist has chosen who they want to shine for. They want to shine, it's kind of like a spotlight, right? A spotlight is very different from a mirror ball. A mirror ball is going to reflect light into the entirety of the space, but a spotlight concentrates on just one spot. They have very much narrowed in on this person. When it says the end is near, that's definitely pretty ominous. When someone is in a state where they believe the end is near, it can create a feeling of anxiety for that person. They can kind of be like, YOLO, the end is near, I'm just gonna do whatever I want. It's a heightened form of anxiety, a lot of adrenaline. So I definitely think there's like heightened emotions going on due to that phrase. What end could be near? They could literally be talking about the end of the party, but we can view the party as a metaphor, being representative of life. So if the end of the party is near, maybe a chapter is closing in someone's life, maybe a relationship is ending. A lot of times people have parties to celebrate the beginning of something, like a wedding, but a lot of time dances, like school dances, signify the end of something. Prom in the United States, it's the end of senior year, usually. I know they have junior prom too, which I never understood why. We just had one prom at my high school, okay? Senior year, it means you're graduating high school. It's the end of an era. If high school is ending, that means the relationships, the friendships you had during that time, they're also probably ending, or they're going to change in a very drastic way. The protagonist is saying that even though there is an end of some sort looming, she's still going to be on her tallest tiptoes, spinning in her highest heels, just for them. Of course, the word love is repeated here as well. Despite the emotions and the not chill vibes associated with this ending, the protagonist doesn't care. Again, they're very like zeroed in on this person. They're 100% there for them. They want to make sure they shine for them. No matter what, they're always going to put on a metaphorical smile for them. This chorus really shows us that the protagonist wants to shine for one person in particular. They don't care if there is an end of some sort looming. They don't care if they're wearing heels, they're still going to be on their tiptoes. They're going to reflect all of their light onto this person. I would argue to their own detriment. Throughout this song, I did find myself thinking about the Manic Pixie Dream Girl a few times. Pretty much, a Manic Pixie Dream Girl is a stock character in films. It was coined by film critic Nathan Rabin. This term was inspired by Kristen Dunst's character in Ellizabethtown. It's a movie from 2005. I actually own this movie. I own like pretty much every romantic comedy from the early 2000s. Rabin said that a manic pixie dream girl, quote, exists solely in the fevered imaginations of sensitive writer-directors to teach broodingly soulful young men to embrace life in its infinite mysteries and adventures. End quote. So pretty much a manic pixie dream girl is a character that lacks depth. Their purpose in movies is just to like be cute and usually like quirky and kind of ethereal, but like a very flat one-dimensional version of etherealness, not a nuanced, interesting version. Their function is to help the male protagonist, their love interest, grow and come to understandings and have like an existential rebirth. To me, it's kind of like they're a blank canvas for the male to reflect their selves onto so they can grow themselves. The women in these roles are kind of just like an accessory. The manic pixie dream girls don't grow, they just are. Maybe they're like a very shiny mirror ball on a dance floor. For the record, this term was technically retired, but I did find myself thinking about a manic pixie dream girl throughout this song based on the way that I'm interpreting the protagonist. She is kind of one-dimensional in this song. I think that's the intent. What I find interesting is that the protagonist has awareness. So like she is like manic pixie dream girling herself. Why? The critique with the manic pixie dream girl is that it's sexist. However, here the protagonist is a female. That's what I'm assuming. And they're talking about themselves. So they're kind of manic pixie dream girling themselves in a way. Why do they have this narrative about themselves? That's what I found myself thinking about. I think that it could be due to past experiences they've had, other people kind of putting them in this role. Maybe it's a protective mechanism. I think sometimes when we go through things that are very difficult, we kind of shut off, and we sometimes maybe find comfort in presenting ourselves as a one-dimensional person. If you present yourself as one-dimensional, then there's no pressure to try to be yourself or to try to find yourself again. I don't want to say you've given up, but it's kind of like a break for a second. Later on in this song, I do talk about how I think this protagonist maybe have some self-esteem issues where they feel like if they'll be extra nice to people, then they will gain their respect and love and admiration, which I don't think is going to work for her. And if that's the case, I do think like low self-esteem issues come from past experiences. I think there could be a lot of like psychological stuff going on here. And listen, I know this is a fictional song, but this is an analysis channel, so we are analyzing it. I would really love to hear your take about this. I can see how some people may not really agree with like the Manic Pixie Dream Girl vibes, and I would love to hear your take even if you don't agree with it. Verse 2. We have repetition of the lyrics. I want you to know I'm a mirror ball. And then we have a new lyric. It says, I can change everything about me to fit in. Listen, I'm all for people being adaptable and being a chameleon, but the way this is stated here just makes me further concerned for the protagonist's well-being. They do not have any boundaries. They can change everything about themselves just to fit into any situation. I do want to make it clear that being adaptable I view as something positive. However, in the context of this song, knowing what we know about the protagonist, or at least for me, interpreting the protagonist the way that I am, I do not view this as positive at all. I view this as being reflective of the lack of boundaries the protagonist has. You should not be changing like the core essence of your being for people. That's the sense I get from the protagonist. Remember earlier I mentioned that I view the protagonist as making themselves a blank canvas for others. If you're a blank canvas, there's literally nothing about you that's in existence. It's blank. Like, why would you do that? Don't do that. You know what I mean? So I am like very saddened by this lyric. Like, no girl, no. Another thing I want to say is that since a mirror ball reflects light, it brings forth a false sense of importance because everyone notices the mirror ball because it's reflecting light and contributing to the ambiance of the party. So it's like the attention is on the mirror ball, on the protagonist, but it really isn't. The people don't care about the protagonist. They care about what she can do for them and what she has been doing over and over again. She's spinning in a circle just like the mirror ball is spinning. She's stuck in this cycle of just being walked all over. It's like she's always at the dance. This is kind of reminding me of Right Where You Left Me by Taylor Swift. I analyzed that song and I called it Taylor Swift's most terrifying song. I'll link it down below. That protagonist was stuck in a restaurant because they were working through like emotional trauma. In my opinion, they were in a really weird, specific type of purgatory. And here I envision the protagonist metaphorically being stuck in another sort of purgatory at a school dance, having fun and just being all cute and wearing a shiny dress and oh my gosh, I'm on my tiptoes for you. For what? Girl, leave that dance. Put on like another dress that's not sparkly. I don't know. Put on some flats or at least some wedges. I do see similarities between Right Where You Left Me in this song now. It's just she's stuck in a state that is not serving her in any way. It's very detrimental to her well-being. Like literally OMG, like no. She's aware that she can change everything about herself, but like it's good to be aware of things. That means that you have the power to change them usually, but sometimes like you don't get to that next step. You are able to acknowledge something, but you're not able to like make a change. And I think that's what's going on with the protagonist. They know who they are and what they're able to do. I don't think they see a problem with it right now. They're too busy getting dizzy from spinning in a circle. And I think when it says to fit in, I think she's fitting into whatever metaphorical party, whatever metaphorical dance floor she finds herself in. You are not like the regulars. So the regulars would be like who the protagonist is used to, who she usually comes across on these metaphorical dance floors. Also, regulars makes it seem like it's a show. Do you know what I mean? Or just like an establishment. The masquerade revelers, drunk as they watch my shattered edges glisten. This is like bridge-worthy stuff right here, but we're only in verse 2, so exciting times. Let's talk about masquerade revelers. So a masquerade can be referring to a specific type of party where people wear masks so no one's identity is known. And people usually wear costumes as well. It's kind of like a whole thing. And also when someone masquerades as someone else, they're pretending to be someone else. They're pretending to be someone they're not. A reveler is a person who enjoys themselves in a lively and noisy way. They take part in revelry, which by definition can involve drinking a lot of alcohol, which brings forth an altered state, which I discussed and explained in my analysis of Taylor Swift's song Cruel Summer. So the regulars are the masquerade revelers. They're people who aren't who they say they are, and they're drunk, they're out of it, they're just here for the show. She's like, you're not like these usual drunk men who come in here pretending to be someone they're not. The protagonist is giving so much of herself away by being this blank canvas, and it's just really heartbreaking to hear about. Drunk as they watch my shattered edges glisten. So she's like performing for them, and they're drunk and they're watching her shattered edges glisten. It's kind of like that notion of like girls being pretty when they cry. It's like juxtaposing like beauty or shininess or this shiny dress the protagonist may be wearing with very intense and deep emotional turmoil and sadness. And like that's why I do not stand the whole like sad and beautiful and like pretty when you cry trope. I would prefer like cute, sassy, and emotionally balanced. Can we make that a trope, please? So these shattered edges are referring to emotional damage, but this goes with the metaphor of the protagonist being a mirror ball. Remember earlier she said when she breaks, it'll be into a million pieces. So the protagonist is broken. She has shattered edges. When there's an edge like this of broken glass, it's very sharp. It can cut someone. It can also cut the protagonist. Her own sharp edges can hurt herself. Remember, these are emotional sharp edges, maybe even mental or psychological sharp edges. So it's much more difficult to realize that they're there. It's not like broken glass you see lying on the floor and you're like, OMG, I'm gonna sweep this up and make sure not to step on it. This is invisible. Emotional, mental, psychological things, they manifest in very like weird ways. It's not super obvious. I have a juxtaposition here with the phrase shattered edges and the word glisten. Glisten gives off a more positive connotation. I think of something kind of sparkling when I hear the word glisten, but the shattered edges here, like I just explained, is not a positive thing at all. I don't think the purpose of this is to glamorize like sadness or anything. I don't think that is what Taylor is doing here. I would argue what she's doing is showing how the outside world views the protagonist, right? The outside world is viewing her in this way. Again, I want to point out the protagonist has awareness of this happening. It's just, I don't think it goes as deep as it should. Maybe like the protagonist can understand the depth of the situation she's in, but for self-preservation purposes, she's blocking it out, intentionally or not. Then we have repetition of the chorus, and now we're at the bridge. So a circus is very different from a party or a dance. So while the protagonist is a mirror ball at these parties, in actuality, she may feel like she's, I don't know, like a freak in a freak show. A circus does not have the most positive connotation in this context. I kind of feel like the protagonist might feel like she's on show for something, especially when the drunk masquerade revelers were talked about in verse 2. So the mention of a circus here is significant because it could metaphorically represent how the protagonist feels like she's on show, feels like she has to perform. However, it's really, really interesting. I had a literal OMG moment because in the past, mirror balls were used in circus performances. For example, animals would balance on mirror balls. In this article from Mental Floss, it actually has a picture of an elephant balancing on a mirror ball in 1959. I'm not going to post the picture here just due to copyright. I don't have rights to that picture, so I'm going to link it down below for you. The mention of a circus here has some historical context. The mirror ball was used as a prop. It's being used as part of the performance. Animals would balance themselves on it. It's kind of like the opposite of a dance floor where the mirror ball is up high lion shining. At a circus, they're underneath like an elephant, which is, you know, not a respectable position spatially in a metaphorical sense. So we can equate that to like an emotional state if we want. The protagonist may emotionally / metaphorically feel like she is a prop that an elephant will stand on. You know what I mean? I just thought that was really interesting that there is like a historical tie-in with this. Burned the disco down. So a disco is like a club, and it's very much aligned with a disco ball, which is a mirror ball. So that's kind of like the protagonist's stomping grounds, I would assume. So the fact that the disco was burned down would be very detrimental to the protagonist, because that's like where she hangs out, like metaphorically or literally. And it was burned down. That brings forth fire imagery. We talk about that quite a lot on this channel. That's complete destruction, right? Fire destroys things completely. When they sent home the horses and the rodeo clowns. So we have in the first 3 lines things connoting endings and destruction. The world is burning around the protagonist, but she is still trying. There's repetition of the word still. Let's count how many times it's repeated. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I always talk about how repetition signifies significance. I think it's very important when there are words repeated by a songwriter, especially when those words are not part of the song title. The protagonist is still on that tightrope, probably in heels. She's still trying everything to get the other person laughing at her. She wants to entertain. I don't think at this point she cares if they're laughing at her expense or not. She just wants to keep a smile on their face. This to me suggests a sense of insecurity. Sometimes you just gotta stop. She's going too far. She's doing too much. She is on her tiptoes in her highest heels. This kind of reminds me of the notion that confidence is quiet. There's a saying that the loudest person in the room is the least confident. I do agree with that to a degree. I don't think if you're extroverted or if you're a loud person, I don't think that means you're not confident. I don't read into it that way, but I do think that insecurities can sometimes be very loud. You're doing too much. You're letting people walk over you. Why? Because you want them to like you? Why? People don't respect doormats. They walk all over them with their dirty shoes. They actually clean the bottom of their shoes off on doormats. The same shoes that they walk into public restrooms with and they walk through a dog park with, they clean that on doormats before they enter the building because they respect the building. They don't respect the doormat. So I guess this is a PSA, don't be a doormat. Set boundaries for yourselves, people. If there's metaphorical fires around you and everything is closing down and they called off the circus, like, no, don't care about making people smile. Just go get to safety. It doesn't matter. They don't care the way you think they'll care. The actions the protagonist is taking to keep entertaining this person, I can assure you they're not going to care. Do you know what's going to happen after the protagonist helps emotionally heal this person? They're going to say, thank you so much, I'm a brand new person, and they're going to go be a brand new person with someone else, someone who did not know them before this change. That's usually how it goes. I feel so bad for this protagonist just because of the emotional state that they're in, but also because I think, and please let me know if you disagree because I could see how you would disagree, but I think that at their core, they might think that being extra nice, by being on this tightrope and entertaining people and wanting them to smile, maybe they can win the affection of others. This could be coming from a place of insecurity, wanting to be loved. Honestly, y'all, like TBH, as I've gotten older, I find more value in wanting to be respected and like feared in an appropriate way versus being loved. I don't know, y'all. Let me know if that's changed for you as you've gotten older. Do you care less about wanting to be loved by others? Do you place value on other things? I would genuinely be interested to know. I don't know. I think like I'm chill. Like I'm obviously would love for people to like me, but I don't really need people to love me. When you don't need people to like love you like that, you're free. Do you know what I mean? That gives you a sense of freedom. When you feel freedom, you don't find it necessary to remain on a tightrope when there's a fire around you. And this isn't just in a romantic context. This is like a mindset towards life. Listen, I know I'm extrapolating this outwards, but it's so dangerous to want to just have someone love you this much. Y'all, listen, for what? Don't get me wrong, love is very important. I do believe in love and I think it's necessary in life. I think it's very beneficial to have it and I think it's a very beautiful thing, both platonic and romantic. But what's being described here is not healthy. I feel so badly for the protagonist, and this is not her fault, right? We don't know the context of the protagonist's life. I think this song could be like a warning, honestly. I've talked about this in some of my other videos as well. A lot of my cardigan analysis, when I talked about like Betty and how Betty deserves better, and also my Betty analysis, like, you need to not depend on other people to feel okay. That doesn't mean be a loner and not have friends. No, not at all. Friendships, having a community, those are super important things. Those are like very valuable things, but you can't depend on other people to the extent that this protagonist is. Maybe not depending, but she's relying on other people. She's defining herself through other people. She's being a blank canvas for other people. She's not working on herself. She's providing light for others to use, but she's not creating a light within herself. In Cardigan, I talked about how it was so detrimental for Betty when James cheated on her. And I talked about that heartbreaking metaphor of her cut bleeding after James left. I will link my cardigan analysis below for you, where I break that down and I talk about how like the power dynamic in that relationship was detrimental to Betty and how it's not okay to depend that much on another person to feel seen. Betty felt like an old cardigan out of the bed, and James made her feel like a seen cardigan. He made her feel like a very useful piece of fall clothing. You need to make yourself feel like a very useful piece of fall clothing. You all are cute beanies, okay? Which I wear much more often than cardigans, so that is a compliment. She's still a believer, but she doesn't know why. A believer maybe in trying to help this other person, in healing this other person. Maybe a believer that everything will work out in her favor, which is good, but I think she's going about this in the wrong way. Not her fault. I just think this is where she's at right now. I know some people sometimes think that by like being really, really nice to others, you will gain their respect and then you will like form close bonds with them. Maybe that'll work in certain circumstances. Being really, really nice and I don't know, like doing what this protagonist is doing is not going to do that because people are not going to be respecting the protagonist. I've never been a natural. All I do is try. Try is repeated. Repetition signifies significance. I think this could kind of be the root of the issues for the protagonist. She's never been a natural at anything. She's never been inherently good at anything. She has to try at everything. And maybe she has to try at making friends. Maybe she has to try extra hard at having a romantic relationship. This could go really deep for the protagonist. This could create a feeling of insecurity for the protagonist. This could cause the protagonist to be wearing heels on a tightrope in the middle of a fire. I'm still on that trapeze. I'm still trying everything to keep you looking at me. Girl, why? Why? It's kind of like in movies where you see like, it's like a romantic relationship and someone's like, I gave up everything for you. I moved for you. I gave up all of my friendships. I did all of this. And then the other person's like, I never asked you to do any of that. Isn't that a punch in the gut? Protagonist is doing all of these things for these people she's reflecting light onto. Did they ask her to do that? They're definitely enjoying the benefits of what the protagonist is doing, but like, I think maybe the protagonist thinks it's going to have people be like grateful towards her, but it's not. A lot of people don't really know the value of what you're giving them. Some people do, most people don't. Most people don't care. I'm not trying to be negative. I'm being very realistic with you guys. Like a majority of people wouldn't care. Those are the people you don't want to have in your circle. So like, it's fine. I think the protagonist just wants connection with people. That's how I'm interpreting this song. It's not going to work. It's going to be like false connection that she's going to perceive as real connection because she has never felt an actual legitimate connection before. That's how I'm interpreting it. Protagonist wants to keep them looking at her. She wants to keep their attention by putting on a show, by doing risky things, by going past boundaries that she doesn't have but should have. She's reflecting light onto people, but she's deflecting the possibility of anything real coming into her life. We end this song with lyrics that are repeated. This is very much just a cycle. We're back at the beginning. We're back at repeated lyrics. This is a snapshot of the protagonist at a moment in time. I do hope that they break out of this cycle and stop reflecting light onto people and just start cultivating light within yourself. Sometimes when you put out too much light, when you reflect so much light outwards to people, it can blind them and they're not going to see you for who you are. That's another way you can think about it. I think a thesis statement for this song and what I mentioned it earlier is that The protagonist is reflecting so much light as a mirror ball that she's deflecting anything of value and substance that can actually come into her life. I think this is a subconscious sort of self-preservation. The protagonist is trying to protect themselves emotionally, and it's just sad. I'm going to stop myself here. Please let me know what you thought of in the comments down below. I would love to hear your take, especially about this song. If you feel inclined, please make sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel. It'll help me out a lot. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you next time. Bye.